So, Russell, we're going to deep dive today into ESPN Plus for a good chunk of our conversation. But I was equally curious to hear more about your initial role with ESPN. Globally, ESPN is seen as this US behemoth sports business that initially it seemed that you were tasked with quite a different project and helping to grow the business internationally when you joined some 20 years ago. So, what exactly did you and ESPN set out to do back then? What was the project, I suppose, you were trying to tackle?
When I first left MTV Networks in 1997 to come to ESPN, now a quarter of a century ago, I was hired to reopen ESPN's corporate office in Hong Kong, and that was on the heels of ESPN and Star Sports merging, and all the employees who had been at ESPN in Asia were joining the joint venture ESPN Star Sports, and so ESPN Inc. needed a bit of a presence in Asia to oversee Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, but also to sit on the board of directors of ESPN Star Sports. And so my first job at the company was hired to do that, spend 8 weeks in New York getting trained, visiting Bristol, understanding the culture of the company, the rules of the road, and then moved to Hong Kong with my then new wife. We're still married 26 years later, and go work me for ESPN chief for Pepsi in Hong Kong, 8 weeks before the handover.
And so going in. Sorry, go on.
Fascinating time to be moving to Asia with the handover of Hong Kong to China, but also, it was tiger economies and really the dawn of, lots of Western companies doing business in that part of the world. So
was your role then effectively to be, I don't want to call it an intermediary, but sort of that conduit between what was happening there with that new relationship with Star and also the American offices, or was it something more longer term than that?
Yeah, I really had two jobs. One was that piece of it, which was to sit on the board and to work daily with the folks at the Star offices in Asia while my colleagues in New York were sleeping, and to be the liaison during the day, and then also to run the businesses in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, which were not part of ESPN Star Sports. So there were territories that were kept out of the venture for different reasons, and ESPN had joint ventures in each of those other territories. And so I worked with the partners we had in those other territories, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, on different ventures in those territories, and was the sort of the lead person for those. And then I was one of the board members for ESPN Star Sports, which was a big venture. And at the time, ESPN and Star Sports were each losing a lot of money, fighting with each other, and came together in a venture that ended up lasting 17 years until we sold it back to them. And then when we bought 21st Century Fox, it all ended up back with the Walt Disney Company.
So I'm curious, with ESPN, obviously it's seen as this big US sports broadcaster, one of the global leaders in best-in-class sports production, broadcasting, etc. And that journey you had, that time there to driving the international business, what was the goal then? Was it to grow ESPN and be the US version of itself in other markets? That was the aspirational goal, or was it just trying to spread those tentacles and see what happened?
I used to, when I returned to New York about 4 years later and became ultimately the managing director of ESPN International, people would say, "What's your job?" And I used to say, "My job is to grow the ESPN brand around the world profitably." And that was sort of the headline mission, and that meant different things in different territories. At the time, we owned, when I first joined the company, we owned a third of Eurosport with TF1 and Canal Plus. We ended up leaving that venture. And doing other things in Europe. But the setup we had in Europe was different than what was going on in Australia, which was a joint venture at the time, which was different than Latin America, which had a few joint ventures embedded in it, but was mostly wholly owned, which was totally different than what we were doing in the Middle East with Orbit, or in Japan with our partners there. And so it was a portfolio approach where we were focused on making money, but also building the ESPN brand around the world, both on television and ultimately digitally.
What were some of the, did you find, obviously culturally you were dealing with a lot of different markets. I guess they would have done business quite differently. Did you notice what were some of the big challenges, I suppose, in going to those markets that you kind of learned along the way, I guess?
I mean, some of the challenges were of being a 29-year-old kid who didn't know all of these different cultures. And so the best gift I ever got was a book called Kiss, Bow, Shake, How to Do Business in Over 100 Countries that someone gave me as my wife and I were moving overseas to Asia. And I think the most important part of it was understanding, right? What does a board meeting in Japan look like versus what's a hard conversation in India versus what is or isn't in compliance with local custom, local law, and U.S. law, which we always had to comply with in Argentina or Mexico or Brazil. And so I think I would describe the greatest challenge is understanding, having a grasp on what was or not appropriate, in terms of business customs, but also laws and regulations and lobbying and, how do you go about doing business in that many countries? I mean, at its peak, we had about 1,200 employees and 26 networks around the world, 15 different websites, and we were doing business locally in all these different places. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, was your objective to replicate what you had with ESPN in the US? Like, we were trying to create ESPN in Mexico for Mexicans, by Mexicans, with, to have the credibility in SportsCenter in Mexico amongst Mexican sports fans, the same way SportsCenter had credibility amongst U.S. fans in the U.S. And so we were taking often formats and models that we'd built and in some cases perfected in the U.S. and then taking the culture of that effort, taking the format of that effort, making it comply with any local rules that were different, and bringing it to our teams around the world. And so we thought of Bristol as a place where we could get efficiency. So if we were producing the Champions League for a bunch of different territories, we brought it into Bristol and we did the things we needed to do there and then passed it along. So we thought of it as a very efficient production center in Bristol, Connecticut, but we also thought about it as a center of excellence for formats and concepts and ideas where we could then push things out. But at the same time, we started things that then we started in other territories around the world, some of which we brought back to the States in digital, some of which we brought back to the States in other concepts. So it was an interesting flywheel ultimately of things. We also ended up offshoring some stuff that we did overseas because it was either more efficient or closer to where things were happening.
And with that localized approach, which makes complete sense, but did you see that evolve? Whether over the years, where it became I'm Australian. I've been living the last 13 years in the UK and have different experiences of the ESPN brand, but I've always been a follower of American sports and how they do things as well. Did you, in some markets, maybe the UK and others, did it evolve to being you want to actually be seen as that US destination, the home of US sports as a destination in certain markets? Or was it always you wanted to try and be a local broadcaster through that whole journey of being an international broadcaster as well?
Yeah, it was never our mission to take U.S. sport around the world. It was our mission to grow the brand and be profitable. In some cases, U.S. sport played a really important part of that. In some cases, U.S. sport was the starting point because that's the rights we had. And we then had to go buy other rights, including at one point we owned 2 packages of the Premier League in the UK, right? And in some cases, we did one thing in one set of media and a different thing in digital media. So like in Australia, for example, we haven't had the Australian rules football or NRL, have had some basketball. But if you look at ESPN as a digital publisher, we're the number 1 digital publisher in Australia. Between Cricinfo and Footy Tips and ESPN.com, which covers all the US sport and global sport that Australians are interested in. And everything we have is already in English. And so we've got this great body of content. We also bought Footy Tips, which is, Australian tipping site. And so when you look at
you bring me back to my younger days here, Russ, talking about all this stuff. It's all the stuff I used to watch and read and consume. Yeah.
I'm sure you were a footy tipper. But when you think about us, we were doing both, right? We were both bringing the best of US sport, which has real appeal in Australia, but also on the digital side, really serving Australian fans from a local perspective. And so we were trying to do as much appealing to fans as we could. ESPN's mission statement has for a long time been to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. And I think that sort of, clarity of mission about what we're doing doesn't really allow you to get caught up in, well, we're bringing American sport to Australia. We did a lot of that, and we brought a lot of American sport around the world, whether it was to Latin America or to Africa or to Europe over the years. But it wasn't the imperative. The imperative was to serve fans and to bring them things they wanted that we could get.
For sure. And so It really leads in nicely to you taking on the role, an incredibly important role at ESPN to drive the development of ESPN Plus. And my, again, first experience of ESPN Plus was the content, the publishing side was probably where the roots of it began, I guess, in a lot of instances, what you're serving through your digital channels. And now that's obviously evolved dramatically from where it first kicked off. But now that's sitting alongside this still massive linear and cable offering that it generates, obviously the majority of cash flow today for the organization. But I guess I'm curious in two things really in this new role. What is ESPN Plus's purpose today? And how does that differ to say what the purpose of it is going to be in 5 to 10 years for Disney?
Yeah, I think you have to go back to think about who we've been in streaming and who we've been in direct to consumer historically before you get to the moment of ESPN Plus, right? And so if you go back to ESPN Broadband, ESPN 360, those were streaming services. They weren't pay streaming services. They were streaming services that were either open or authenticated against your MVPD or DMVPD subscription. In 2015, we took the 2015 Cricket World Cup direct to consumer with a product called ESPN Cricket 2015, where the only way you could get the Cricket World Cup in America was from ESPN Cricket 2015. It was a direct to consumer product. It was $99.99 for the entire Cricket World Cup, a project that I led from inside of ESPN. This predates the launch of ESPN Plus, and so we did that direct to consumer project. And then you think about ESPN 3, which at the time had 8,000 to 10,000 events streaming to fans based on your broadband subscription. And you then lead up to ESPN's investment in initial investment in BAMTech and then further investment in BAMTech and the launch of ESPN Plus, which was meant to be a direct-to-consumer streaming service, different in business model than the streaming we've been doing. And by the way, in addition to that streaming that I just described that we were already doing, of course, we also had a TV Everywhere authentication. So every cable subscriber, every satellite subscriber, every DMVPD subscriber can watch the ESPN linear channels on the app, either on their connected TV device or on their phone or the website, just by entering their credentials from their cable operator or satellite operator. And so, the streaming heritage of ESPN and the Walt Disney Company is quite strong in advance of the launch of the different business model, which is really the continuation of what ESPN did with Cricket 2015, which was just a standalone event. But now you get to ESPN Plus, in its launch. I wasn't involved in launch. I was still running ESPN International, and it was fall of 2018 when it launched in April, and I joined in November of 2018 as a general manager of ESPN Plus. Joining the team at BAMTech, then Disney Streaming Services, now called Disney Streaming. And I think the evolution that you saw with ESPN from where we went to where we are has been part of a broader philosophical shift, for the Walt Disney Company, as first articulated by Bob Iger and continued by Bob Chapek today. And so I think when you think about where we're going as a company, I mean, you look at the Disney bundle, and it's the perfect example, right? You've got ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Hulu bundled together for fans. You can also buy them each on a standalone basis. But the best value proposition we have to fans and entertainment junkies and Disney fans and people who are rabid for what's on Hulu is when you get the three services together. And so we're quite excited about the evolution we've made, and also about the position we have both in the industry, but also amongst consumers. When you look at where we've landed at the moment, and we feel quite good about it. I think you heard Bob Chapek talk about it yesterday on the earnings call. In terms of where we are and where we're going. In terms of streaming, and we're committed to the ESPN Plus part of the business, and we're also preparing for a future when we might take ESPN, the linear networks, direct to consumer, and a fan would be able to get those directly from us as well as from the MVPD and DMVPD environment. And what we're doing is, looking for the moment when it makes sense for the business and shareholders, but also continue to build out the capabilities we have, continue to build out the number of direct-to-consumer subscribers we have. And, if and when we make that pivot, we feel like we'll be in an outstanding position to do that. And, I feel like everything we're doing today in, creating a service for fans, which, as we said the other day, has over 22 million subscribers, is both a business unto itself today and in preparation for what the future might look like. And
the big question mark everyone's obviously has on their lips is, when is that time that, as Bob Chapek put it, to pull the trigger on that situation? And I think everyone's going to be sitting eagerly waiting to find to see when that does happen. And I think he mentioned in that earnings call about being positioned to appeal to the super fan. That's really what ESPN's sort of secret sauce is, I suppose, that you can really serve them better than anyone else in the market. So, I mean, you intimated it there, but I'm just curious then, is ESPN Plus itself, do you think that's the conduit for that trigger pulling, or is it going to be ESPN Plus sitting as part of that another offering, which is that pull the trigger moment for ESPN?
Well, I mean, fans can already get ESPN Plus directly from us. So, the question that everybody keeps asking is, when will they be able to get, the linear networks from you directly? And I think, while there's no specific timeline to share, and Bob's been very clear that we'll do it when it makes financial sense. Those linear networks are an enormous driver of revenue and cash flow today, the Walt Disney Company. Lots of other people entering the streaming businesses or in the streaming businesses would love to have that, cash flow to fund other things they're doing, and we have it. And I would say that, the next version of the world will have all that stuff together in some way, but we haven't announced any plans, and Bob was very clear that if and when we make that pivot, it'll be to serve fans and because it makes sense for our shareholders.
Yeah, no worries. Latest reports, as you mentioned, were over 22 million subscribers. For context, for those that didn't see the numbers, up 1 million from last quarter. That's 62% up year on year. I'm curious, how is that tracking to expectations? Obviously, growth is great and numbers going up is what everyone wants to hear. Is that what you guys were predicting at this stage, or were you thinking you'd see growth a bit faster? We've obviously seen other streaming businesses have some below expectations on their recent earnings call. How are you guys seeing the numbers tracking from your point of view?
We don't generally share what our expectations are, but I'll just tell you, we're really pleased with where we sit. And we feel like, we're reaching a really strong and good number of fans who are loving the service and using it a lot. And the other part I would say is, you have to remember that ESPN Plus sits inside the ESPN app, right? One of our great advantages in building this business is the relationship we already have with sports fans, both on linear television, which, as I said earlier, drives strong revenue and cash flow, but also on the digital side of our business. When we have a peak month of 120 million uniques coming into the ESPN digital ecosystem, you got to think about that as like the top of our funnel. And we're then surfacing content to them, showing them experiences, giving them a chance to click and buy, and helping them understand what they get with ESPN Plus. And I think, when you think about how that serves our ESPN Plus business, it serves it amazingly well. And that's where we are, finding ourselves at the intersection of our existing businesses and our new businesses and how those things fit together. So, all you have to do is turn on ESPN on a Saturday night, 12 Saturday nights a year at 8 p.m. when there's a UFC pay-per-view, and see 2 hours of prelim fights happening, on ESPN, linear television, also simulcast on ESPN Plus, but on linear television for people who don't have ESPN Plus, reminding them that, Conor McGregor or Volkanovski or, anybody else is going to be fighting in pay-per-view starting at 10 o'clock. And if you don't sign up now, when that thing starts at 10 o'clock, you won't be watching the biggest fights of the night 12 nights a year. And so we bring all of that together. And if you go, and Nick, if you go into the app at the same time, you can see the sort of echo chamber of promotion that's happening for that specific event. By the way, no different than, if you look at something like, Man in the Arena, which is, our most successful original to date, 9 episodes produced, aired on ESPN Plus. Then those 9 episodes also were added to Disney Plus and Hulu, all in advance of the 10th episode only being available back on ESPN Plus. And then the night before we launched the 10th episode on ESPN Plus, the 2 nights before, there was a linear airing of 1 through 9 for people who'd missed it to get them ready for episode 10 with Tom Brady. And so I feel like we are highly collaborative across our ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu family, all sitting inside of Disney Streaming, led by Michael Paul. And we're also quite strategic about how we're moving content around to both expose fans, but also to entice fans. When we think about digital, it is a direct-to-consumer business. We have a direct, we have a direct relationship with consumers, even when they're not paying us, a fee for, the product. The direct-to-consumer relationship where they're registering their fantasy picks, they're registering for Tournament Challenge, they're telling us who their favorite teams are because they want us to customize their experience. We think of that as a direct-to-consumer experience as well, not always a direct-to-consumer subscription business, but having an ecosystem that allows people to come in and just use certain products without being registering, and we enhance their experience, or paying us and we then give them a whole nother experience is an ecosystem that we've built that we feel really good about.
Yeah, it makes complete sense, and I understand the context there. I'm curious that you talked about the content side and programming and using different types of content in different ways. And now in the Disney business, you have ESPN Plus, you have the linear channels, you obviously have ABC alongside that, you have Hulu in there as well. How on earth do you guys work out what goes where? Like when you're looking at a set of live sports rights, is there some sort of master plan or framework that if it ticks certain demographic relevancy that it goes to this product more or other? Or is it just maximizing the monetary value you can get out of those rights or audience reach? How on earth do you work that out? I know it's probably very collaborative and you guys are all working together and all heading the right direction, but there must be some sort of methodology there that's either really complex or really difficult to navigate between people with different objectives, I suppose.
A, it's a good question, and B, people have been asking it for the entire 25 years I've been at the company, because the optimization of the content across platforms has been happening since we first launched ESPN2, and like what's going to be on ESPN2 versus ESPN1 and why. And so it's been an interesting, journey the company's been on around the same exercise, which is what's the right answer for where the content should go. And I think the ultimate answer has been it's about serving fans and driving shareholder value, right? And it's that balancing act of those two things, which I think we've done a really good job over the years. And it's become more of an opportunity and more complex as we've launched more ESPN branded platforms, and we also work hard to put the right content on ABC, which is a large platform, and you'll see sports on ABC, the ESPN on ABC, context and content is really important. Sometimes as a standalone, but sometimes in concert with what's going on ESPN. And so you've got the team led by Burke Magnus, who leads programming for ESPN, and Burke and his team, including John Lasker, who's the head of programming for ESPN Plus, and Emily Horowitz, and that team working with Freddie Roland, who runs scheduling. That group of people are constantly building the schedule and looking to optimize the schedule to maximize ad revenue, to maximize ratings, but you only have so much space in each place. And so as you look around, you need to, you didn't say puzzle, Nick, but you hinted at it. It's a puzzle. And obviously it has to fit in with our priorities. We're trying to grow ESPN Plus as well. And so it starts off with our rights deals and having maximum flexibility in our rights deals to move content to the platforms that we need to put it on. It has to do with our ability to market and take fans to those places. And it's It's about putting the right content in the right place. Like PGA Tour Live is a perfect ESPN Plus product, right? It's multi-screen. It's 4 days long. Like there isn't room for a piece of content like that on linear television, right? And one of the beauties of our digital business broadly, but ESPN Plus specifically, is the capacity is infinite, right? We could have the 11,000 events that are there today, or we could have 50,000 events. It's just buying more capacity to push more events down the pipe. And so we have the ability to do more. The question is, what's the next thing you do? What's the marginal value of doing that? And how does that fit into both the core big content idea part of ESPN Plus and the long tail part of ESPN Plus? And, people sometimes like to cast ESPN Plus as, oh, that's a niche service. And I always laugh when they say that because, I neither consider 1,000 out of market NHL games or 75 exclusive NHL games, nor the FA Cup final, nor 12 pay-per-view fights, including like a Conor McGregor fight that drives 1 million pay-per-views, to be niche content. Nor do I think about Peyton Manning doing Peyton's Places or Tom Brady doing Man in the Arena as that kind of content. So I think I like to think about it when we're sitting around with the programming team and with Burke and John Lasker and Emily Horowitz and that team as we're doing both. Like we've got big events on ESPN Plus, big college football games, big FA Cup final this weekend, and we've got Ivy League squash, which, by the way, if you want to watch Ivy League squash, you think ESPN Plus is a bargain, and that long tail part of the business is an important part of what we're doing, and brings in fans. And then when they come in to watch their grandson, granddaughter, daughter, sister play, in the AAC or a Big 12 volleyball game, they then go, oh, I didn't know you had the entire 30 for 30 library exclusively on ESPN Plus. I love 30 for 30s. And so it's our job that when someone comes in, either for a big event or for something that's more on the long tail side of things, to quickly help them understand what they've gotten themselves into. Because people come in generally for a thing. I come in because I want to watch Tom Brady. I come in because I want to watch my fighter fight on UFC. I come in because I want to watch women's volleyball tournament, women's softball tournament. I come in because I'm a PGA Tour fan. And then we want to entice and delight them with the breadth of what we have. And as you know, Nick, as someone who looks at it, you could spend a lot of time wandering around ESPN Plus and being quite entertained.
For sure. And it's a really interesting point you raised there about a niche product or a property like squash. One of the things that we've seen in other markets and other sports properties is the more data and insight you can get around the way your sport is, where your sports rights are being consumed, is what is moving the needle, what is having an impact with driving subscribers to your platform and keeping them and drawing ratings, etc. And what we've seen in some sports streaming services is reducing the investment into covering some of those more niche sports properties because they know they don't really make a discernible impact in driving subscribers to the platform. And some have actually really pulled back on that, instead focused on a couple of major sports and doubling down on those. Do you see ESPN Plus as, you sort of intimated it, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sort of being a bit of both, focusing on being a home destination for major sports properties, but equally looking at opportunities to bring in sort of niche audiences that might come in, have a different objective, a different way into the platform via squash or other sports, and then keeping them through the mainstream side of things as well?
I'll take you back to a story. When we launched ESPN in the UK, I'll answer your question, but let me take you back to a story. When we launched ESPN in the UK as a subscription service that you had to buy on top of Sky, on Sky, after you bought Sky Sports, right? I used to describe it as a pile of long tail. Russell, why'd you buy the Russian soccer for the UK? Answer, we bought the Russian soccer for the UK because there's 150,000 Russian soccer fans living in the UK. And if we put the Russian soccer on ESPN in the UK, ESPN television in the UK, we're going to attract, we had a guess, X% of those fans, which will be critical to this. And it's a long season. And so they'll come in August and they'll leave in May, right? And I once described ESPN pay service in the UK as obviously we had the Premier League, which is at the highest end, and then we had some content in the middle, and then a pile of long tails. And those fans are avid fans, and when you get them in there, they watched other things. And so I don't think the way I think about it is you have to be strategic about what different things do for your business, right? One big event that people come in for and then leave, a huge amount of people come in and then leave at the end of the event and don't stay for the second month, does one thing for you. An event where people come in and stay with you for 7-8 months does a whole different thing for you. And so I think our deep understanding of what it takes to bring somebody in, what they do when they're there, how long they stay, how we get them to not leave, or when they leave, how we get them to come back, is critical to our success. And I think we've done a really nice job of building that capability over the last, really 36, almost 48 months here. When the price is the same for the service, whether you're a fan of the Patriot League or the Ivy League or Bundesliga, they have the same value to us. They're all paying the same price. And so we're bringing them in, we're opening lots of front doors, and we're trying to make the exit door really small. Trying to bring as many people in through all these different doors and only have one way out, and try to encourage people that it's not worth it to go. Stick with us. We've got stuff that you didn't really know we had. It's not why you came here, but boy, once you get into it, you're going to love it.
So my theory has always been that actually the niche sports, let's say the Russian Premier League example is an example, that actually those fans are underserved, right? They don't have access. If they live in the UK, there's 150,000 supporters. They don't have access to it. So by you supplying that to them, actually they'd be willing to pay a lot more for that service because it's something that they can't get anywhere else. Whereas if you have the Premier League in the UK, it is spliced and diced and cut up into different packages, and so you can get served in different ways, and you have to determine how much of a fan you are to determine how much you want to spend on watching all of that content. So I'm curious, have you ever looked at it that way in terms of having a more focus point around pricing more specific sets of sports properties, for different types of fan sets, or has it always been like we just want to get you in and then keep you is the main objective?
I think I guess I'd say two things as I think about, since we've launched this product, we've always thought about going back to our mission, serving fans, but also serving underserved fans, right? And giving them things they can't get anywhere else. Critical part of the business. But also having the breadth and depth in the areas that matter to be, we are the number one sports streaming service in the country and in the world at the moment, in terms of the number of subscribers we have and the range and breadth and depth of sports that we have. I think simplicity goes a long way in this business. Lots of discussions about should we have button farms? Like when you come to the marketing landing page, you have to make a decision what you want. How many choices do we want to give people? And the simplicity of, do you want an annual package? Do you want a monthly package? Do you want it standalone or do you want the bundle? I think is quite elegant, and we feel like it does a really good job for us. And so, yes, we could probably charge a little bit more to fans who wanted to watch this or that, but it then complicates both the marketing, but also the product experience inside. And when you get inside ESPN Plus, on a Saturday in September and October, what's available to you is unbelievable. Between European football, college football from America, the NFL content that we have on our platform. We just announced we'll have our first exclusive NFL football game on ESPN Plus this fall. But even before that, we have NFL Primetime every Sunday night with Chris Berman, a show that had been on linear television that we brought back to life and put on ESPN Plus. We got Peyton's Places, right? You've got Detail. You've got all this NFL content that an NFL fan, loves, alongside of the unbelievable and huge amount of NFL content we have on our linear networks and on ESPN.com and the ESPN app, including fantasy football. And so, I think the best experience a fan can have, and you hinted at it earlier, Nick, when you asked about, our direct consumer business grew out of our editorial business. We had this business called the Espn Insider that people were paying us for a set of articles that you could only get if you were an insider. When we launched ESPN Plus, we migrated those insiders into ESPN Plus, and we took that pay service and moved it inside of ESPN Plus. And so that was a good example. We could have kept that separate and you could have paid extra for that, but we decided that this was going to be our offering, and when you think about ESPN Plus, it's events, it's studio, it's original entertainment, and it's premium editorial and tools. And it's worth talking about those premium editorial and tools for just a second, because there are people who want to read those writers, and certain writers you can only get their analytics pieces, and when they break news, it's on the open ESPN.com. It's news is commoditized in some way, and we keep pushing it out that way, and I think we're the best at that. But long form pieces, analytical pieces, some feature stories that are only available on ESPN Plus. I mean, you don't see too many. I mean, I know everybody calls us a streaming service, and we fall into the trap of calling ourselves a streaming service, but ESPN Plus is a lot more than a streaming service, right? Because while you can stream live events, studio, originals, you can also only read these articles if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber, and you can only use certain fantasy and tournament challenge tools if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber. And so that premium editorial and tools piece is quite interesting and quite different from anything anybody else is doing in either the sports space or the entertainment space, in terms of having components that are beyond streaming. And I think that's one of the great sort of advantages of coming from the heritage of ESPN.com and the ESPN app, is they are story-based, they are score-based, they are fantasy-based. This past year we launched exclusive fantasy leagues for ESPN Plus subscribers with different pricing, that if you're an ESPN Plus subscriber and you play in these fantasy leagues, you can win different pricing, to continue to demonstrate to ESPN Plus subscribers that, membership has its privileges.
Definitely. And obviously ESPN, therefore, and ESPN Plus is becoming a real destination, a home for fans of sports, not just a place to watch it, which is obviously a really important aspect of the business. And I'm curious, we're hearing a lot around the monetization piece. We're talking about the subscription as a core part of it. I'm just curious how you guys are looking at the advertising and how that fits into ESPN Plus's offering. We're hearing it everywhere that everyone is looking more and more at how they integrate advertising into the mix now. I'm not sure what ESPN's stance is on through the ESPN Plus's platform around advertising, and how do you guys look at that?
We've always had advertising on ESPN Plus. Our live events look just like live events on linear television. Similar formats. And whether you're watching a Major League Baseball game or you're watching PJ Tour Live, or you're watching the Bundesliga or La Liga, or the newest addition to our stable, the NHL, you've got the kind of ad experience that fans are used to, and that is standard for a sporting event. So we've been in that space right from the very beginning. We've done some more sponsorship on the original entertainment side of things. You'll continue to see us do more of that. And as other services on the entertainment side get into the advertising side of things, we'll continue to do what we do here. And it's become, it's a growing part of our business as the subscriber base grows. And of course, targeting and, giving Rita Farrow and the Disney ad sales team, which is the same team that sells the linear television networks. It's all in one organization, the Walt Disney Company. So the team that Rita Farrow runs, Disney ad sales, is selling ABC entertainment, sports on ESPN on ABC, all of the ESPN linear networks, Hulu, as well as ESPN Plus, and all of the digital advertising that people are buying on ESPN.com and the ESPN app. And so, we're headed into the upfronts next week here in the U.S. That Disney ad sales team will present to the world of buyers, our range of offerings, from linear entertainment to addressable entertainment to all sports, whether linear or ratings based or addressable. And so we feel really good about sort of both the hand we have in terms of what we have to sell, but also about how we go about selling it. Advertising is increasingly addressable. There's been more addressable advertising opportunities than ever before. and streaming enables that future. Whether that's on Hulu or Disney Plus or ESPN Plus.
Another area to generate, I guess, an increase of average revenue per user or share of wallet is around betting, right? We're hearing betting is on the tip of everyone's lips, particularly across the US, and everyone's looking at it in different ways, shapes, and forms. I remember Bob Iger, who was obviously the previous CEO, sort of intimated that you guys wouldn't be looking too much at that space other than maybe some base partnerships. But Bob Chapek more recently has said, everyone seems to want betting involved, and the fans want betting involved. So it looks like ESPN will do a bit around that space. What are your plans around that? I believe you guys have some relationships already with some existing businesses already.
Yeah, I mean, we have different relationships in different parts around the world. Some of them date back a long time ago in places like Australia and the UK. I guess I would tell you three things about betting. I believe if you ask fans today, we're probably the most trusted brand name in betting, even though you can't place a bet with us today. They rely on us to give them insight and thoughts about who's hurt, who's healthy, who's playing well, who's not playing well, what this team generally does when they play that team, who you expect to win this weekend, right? And so we're an important part of that ecosystem, regardless of what role we play in it. We do have existing relationships with Caesars and DraftKings, who are both different deals that we have with them, and I think you'll continue to see us to push into this space, which is in part about, again, it always sounds silly when we come back to our mission statement, but when you have a mission statement that's as clear as ours, as fans as fans do more of this, as it becomes legal in more states, we're going to do more of it. But we already have an enormous amount of content that serves bettors and also helps them be better at what they're trying to do, and including shows like Better Days and Daily Wager. I mean, there's content. We've got a studio in Las Vegas. I mean, you've seen a lot of that forward motion happen already. I don't have any forward-looking plans that I'm going to share with you today about what we're going to do on a more broad basis. But I would say
that's what I guess what I was going to go on. Sorry, Russell.
I just say ESPN hasn't been left behind in too many trends over the 25 years I've been at the company, or the over 40 years we've been in business. So.
Very true. I guess, well, you may not be able to answer them, but I guess in terms of you've seen Fubo TV, we've seen DAZN, etc., and other businesses actually creating direct integration of betting into the streaming platform and in the live product itself. You may not be able to answer that, but do you see that as something that you, or at least will be investigating, that prospect of bringing that into the live experience for a consumer on ESPN Plus? Or is that a step further than you would go for now?
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell you about our plans in this space, but trust me that we continue to look at the best way to serve fans, and we already have opportunities across our site where fans can link out to go place bets with the people they want to place their bets with today. So I think I'll leave it at that.
No worries. Now, I said your background, obviously you spent a lot of time managing the international side of the business. I'm really curious of what the future of ESPN Plus is, particularly internationally. Obviously, there's a lot of growth opportunity just in the US alone, where your roots and your primary business is. But you're building all these relationships with major rights holders and sports properties, particularly through the ESPN Plus platform. What is the objective there internationally? Is there a plan to really scale this and go into different markets?
So I guess I would say two things. I mean, these relationships that we have are not new with these rights holders. We've been doing this for a very long time. And by the way, some of us have been actually doing it ourselves for a very long time. And so in some ways, this is getting into business with people we've been in business with for a long time for a new part of our business, which I think is, again, one of the things that rights holders love about working with us is, we're taking them to new places as we go to new places. What I would say is, on the international sports side, we've got different models in different territories, and we always have. And so you've got the ESPN linear networks down in Latin America, which are now also part of Star Plus, which is the second brand that we launched in Latin America. So you have Disney Plus and Star Plus, and then you have a combo bundle of those two services. You've got sports direct-to-consumer content sitting inside that direct-to-consumer offering in Latin America. And so you've got the ESPN branded content sitting inside of that vessel. And the ESPN app and site are, just like we did here, are being used to drive people to Star Plus. Right? And so you got the advantage of using our existing digital platforms. I mean, if you go to India, we've got Hotstar with the IPL, so we're already in the direct-to-consumer sports business. And, in different parts of Europe, the pre-existing Fox businesses that are now part of the Walt Disney Company have real sets of sports rights. And so while the model and the business and the brand might be different in different places, the philosophies and strategies and theories that you're seeing us execute here are going to continue to be explored and deployed as they make sense on a territory by territory basis. And you've got leaders in each part of the world who run the Walt Disney Company in each part of the world, and those folks, are over Disney Plus and sports content, whether that sits inside of a ESPN branded vessel or a Hotstar branded vessel or an ESPN branded tile inside of a Star Plus, app.
Okay, sure. So most of that philosophy or the focus on the growth of ESPN Plus and the iterations of it is a localized approach, which obviously you spend a lot of time working through over the years as well. I guess one sort of final question that I have that I wanted to run by you is really on the direct to consumer side. Particularly, we've seen all these different sports properties really going all in themselves and creating digital to consumer propositions. But we've equally seen a number of these platforms shift their relationships back to the broadcaster. You talked about PGA Tour Live as an example. UFC is obviously heavily involved with you guys. WWE going in with Peacock on the US was quite an eye-opener to a lot of people. What's your take on, I guess, the future of that space? Do you think we'll see more and more of back to the future, I suppose, in sports partnering up more closely with broadcasters? Because the reality is the broadcasters do it better in terms of marketing and selling and going direct and marketing a product than they can themselves. Or do you think it's just going to be one of these yo-yo things that we go up and down with fragmentation of rights and serving audiences in different ways from here on?
I mean, I think in some ways, Nick, it depends on what the league or federation or rights holder or content creator's ambition is, right? And so we can't tell them what their ambition should be, but we can show them the benefits of being part of ESPN Plus. We can't tell them whether or not we can. I mean, but we generally don't say you shouldn't do this, but we show them the benefit of being with us. And so when you look at, NHL.TV, which was a standalone product previously, by the way, which we ran for them. We were BAMTech was the operator of that. We took all of that content, almost all of that content, and put it inside of ESPN Plus. So you get 1,000 out-of-market games inside of ESPN Plus. And you're seeing it's not only available to the hundreds of thousands of people who would have been available to her, it's available to 22 million people. And so as a league, you get excited about that, right? You look at PGA Tour Live, which was in a bunch of different places, but one of which was directly from the PGA Tour, today sitting exclusively inside of ESPN Plus with over 22 million subscribers, right? And so you feel pretty good about that exposure you're getting, in a service that has a broad subscriber base. And so I think for us, I think we're proud of the conversations we have with rights holders. We're straightforward and we're forthright about what we're trying to do. And I think we're generally pretty good at helping them understand why we think being part of this would be good for them and their business in a way, in a way that works. But also remember, like, consumers only have a threshold for so many subscriptions. And I don't know what that N is or that X is, right? And but I know it's not 20 sports ones and 5 entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And the Disney bundle is one that has sports and entertainment and family and movies and TV all together. But if you were a golf fan, a hockey fan, a football fan, and a one European League fan, and you had to go out and buy 4 different services on top of whatever entertainment streaming services you want, that might be right at the edge of what you would be willing to do. And I think what we've done is we've served fans really well by bringing a lot of this content together to one place.
And I guess that's why things like bundling is going to be such an important part of this in the future, because, yeah, as you said, we're not going to be in a situation where everyone's just going to be willing to sign up 20 different subscription products. The reality is that's not
and I think we've met
case.
fans and sports fans and entertainment junkies where they are, right? You want just ESPN Plus, you can have just ESPN Plus. You want the Disney bundle, it's the best offer we have. Come get it, right? And I think when I wake up in the morning, Nick, and I think about what the best experience someone can have as a sports fan in the US is, it's having an MVP or DMVPD subscription where you get all of the ESPN linear networks. That service also comes with the ABC television network, which has great sports. And when you put ABC and ESPN together, an amazing accumulation of things. You should authenticate that subscription. You should go onto the ESPN app and put in your credentials so that when you're not at home, you can pick up your iPad and you can watch anything that we have on either ABC or ESPN there, and then go one step further and buy either ESPN Plus or the Disney bundle and add ESPN Plus to that. And when you think about the number of events you could watch on any given day, and if God forbid there's not an event that you want to watch, the amount of other ESPN content, whether that's Sports Center or Get Up in the Morning on linear or one of the over 130 30 for 30 films while you're sitting at an airport that you could watch, that's the best experience. And when you do it at home on an Apple TV on a Saturday afternoon, and you can take Apple TV and do a multicast and put up 4 different events on your screen inside the ESPN app, and you can mix into that app experience one event from ESPN, ESPN2, and then 2 from ESPN Plus. That's the best experience when you have when you're a customer of ours who has both our linear networks through an MVP or DVMVT and a subscription to ESPN Plus. And when you're playing with your Apple TV, you can actually, and other platforms, you can actually multicast them. And on a college football Saturday, to put up 4 college football games, one that's sitting on ABC, one that's on ESPN, one on ESPN2, and one on ESPN Plus, that's a pretty great sports fan. I mean, you're in your own sports bar. You're in your own sports bar as long as you got a cold beer before you sat down.
Sounds like a good place to be for any super fan, and you've got me excited about it. And I don't even live in the US, so that's a good sign. But Russell, that is all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you, Nick. Take care.